We're driving with Autopilot in our Tesla Model S P85D. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everybody, and welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm Tom Muchler.
I'm Jake Fisher.
One of the reasons we bought a Tesla Model S P85D was to try out its self-driving capability, to find out what Tesla's Autopilot could do. So that's what we're doing on this episode of Talking Cars. So what capability does Autopilot have, Jake?
So what Autopilot has is they call it Autopilot, but what it does is a few things. It takes active cruise control kind of to the next level. So while there are cars that do active cruise, basically they hold you a few car lengths behind the car in front of you. This also does basically automatic steering. So what it's doing is it's sensing the lines. It's also using GPS data. It's also using the fact of where the car in front of you is, and it holds you in the lines. Now, I could take my hands off the wheel and it'll continue doing that for about 2.5 minutes, and then it yells at you.
That seems like a long time.
That does seem like a long time. This is something that other manufacturers don't do. And when I say other manufacturers, there are other cars that do this. Mm-hmm. There's other cars that keep you in the lane.
Almost 2 years ago, we talked about a Mercedes-Benz S-Class that we had.
That's exactly right. However, as soon as you take your hands off that wheel, it says, no, Achtung, not a good thing, put your hands back in the wheel.
Yeah.
Yes, this car will allow you to do that, although it tells you not to. The other things that this car will do is lane change. So generally, if you want to change lanes on a car that is doing this, which is basically, it's a lane keep assist is basically what it's doing. You have to get rid of that system, then change your lanes. And this car, I could actually turn the turn signal on, it'll go into the next lane, and then hold me in that lane.
Right, and it will automatically, it will overtake a car that's slower than it if you instigate it with the turn signal. And then you can flip the turn signal back and it will pull back in front of whatever car you just passed.
Yep, and it's looking for those openings. It's not going to turn you into a car. It's
no, because it's using blind spot monitoring and all the sensing systems.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, so I mean that's kind of impressive. Is this a safety feature?
Well, let's say first of all, it's not a self-driving car, which a lot of people think it is. Is it a safety feature? You know, it's interesting. I mean, what it really is, it's kind of a flexing the muscles of technology. And I think that's giving a lot of attention. A lot of people are really paying attention to what Tesla's doing in that realm. But in terms of safety, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, it does add a little layer of confidence, I would say. So I was driving this car back at night from our head office in Yonkers. Mm-hmm. And, you know,
after a day full of meetings.
After a day full of very fun meetings.
I'm sure all meetings are fun.
And, you know, I'm driving an hour and a half home, and it's late, and having the car kind of hold me, kind of like, it was almost like a little blanket, you know, holding you between those lanes. I gotta say, it was helpful. It did kind of give you some confidence. Of course, I used it the way the system is designed to. I had my hands on the wheel, I'm paying attention. But I kind of feel that little safety blanket of holding me in that lane. It can be a non-safety feature too, because, and you know, we've seen there's all these like viral videos going around where people are taking their hands off the wheel and saying, wow, this isn't a very good self-driving car. That's not what it's supposed to be doing. That's not what they're advertising the car is doing. That's not a safety feature.
Right. I mean, that's, I think, where you get to the negative side of this, is that this system comes with a load of temptation.
Right.
You know, one of them is that, like you said, the ability to keep your hands off of the wheels for an extended length of time. You know, I mean, the system's not looking for much for you to have your hands on the wheel. It just needs a little bit of drag, a little bit of resistance.
That's right.
To sense it. But unlike those other, you know, unlike the German cars, you've got to at least do that. You have to stay engaged.
Right.
But I admit, you know, it's easy to kind of set everything up and you just sort of look around and look at the pretty leaves on the trees and even beyond that, at least there you're at least paying attention to the outside world. In a Tesla Model S, you've got a full web browser on that big screen between the two seats.
Yeah, well, so the entire time we've been talking, I've been using Autopilot, and I'm using it. I'm paying attention where I'm going. My hands are on the wheel. I'm using the turn signal. It's turning for me. It's holding me between the lanes. I'm just gently touching the steering wheel. It's doing its thing. It's also keeping me several car lengths behind the car in front of me, which I could adjust that too. But there is that temptation. So yes, you have this giant touchscreen here. I got a full web browser, which is kind of borderline irresponsible for allowing you to use this full web browser as you drive. And certainly there's other temptations, whether or not you're in a Tesla or not. You have a smartphone in your pocket. There's a lot of things, you gotta tweet back to that guy, right? I mean, you gotta.
It makes it very tempting to text.
It does. Texting, email, checking the weather. When you can, or at least you think you can allow the car to drive itself, but it's not. It's not a self-driving car. It's not designed to do that. And, it's, look, I would kind of equate this to, how do I put this? It's like allowing a toddler to drive your car. Okay? It can, but it's not very good at that.
No, it can't really put things in context or really figure out that there are certain rules that need to be followed.
Right.
All it can do is the very simple mechanical task of keeping this car within its lane and keeping it a certain distance away from the person ahead of it.
Right, but what happens when there's a pothole? Or there's a muffler that's in the road? You better be paying attention. Your car is not going to avoid those little things. What happens when there's someone to the left of you and he's weaving or looking down, or there's something else going on?
There's also the fact that Autopilot isn't perfect. There are some situations where it has problems. First of all, one of the main use places for this is on a highway, a divided lane, limited access highway. It's using lane markings in order to keep you in the lane. If those lane markings disappear, like you come near an off-ramp, I've had it decide to take the off-ramp.
Right, sure. It's a pretty advanced system. It's looking at the lane markings, it's looking at GPS, it's looking at the other cars, but it can get fooled and it can make mistakes, and it's not going to be as good as a human. But yeah, there's that adaptation concern. Are we going to adapt to this and say, well, I don't have to pay attention as much? Right. And that is a very, very scary thing, because it's not true. You do have to pay attention as much in this situation.
The technology is not there yet.
It's not
this
there
is, again,
yet.
not a self-driving car.
And I will say, this is the best we've seen in terms of the technology. I was just driving our BMW 7 Series that we just got in our fleet. Does very similar stuff. Not as good. And one of the cool things that how Tesla's dealing with this is they are learning.
Right.
So this is a really fascinating way that they're dealing with this. Now, Google, with their self-driving car program, they have all these cars going around, and they're
all in-house.
They're in-house, and they're mapping everything. Right. They're using the fleet of Teslas to collect data. So even if you don't have the Autopilot enabled on your car, it's a $25 option. Even if you don't have it, they're using their sensors, they're picking up all the information, they're looking at the roads, they're seeing if the roads match GPS data, and they're learning, and they'll continue to learn and get better.
But here's the fascinating thing. I find this fascinating from a philosophical standpoint. Buyers of this car, including us, paid $2,500 for beta. This isn't
right.
In fact, we bought it when it didn't even work.
Right, we bought vaporware, truly,
right.
right? We bought something that did not exist.
We bought a promise.
With the hope that by the summer, and I think it was a little later than the
late,
summer,
yeah.
But that you would get this, and it wasn't clear what it was. They said, it'll do cool stuff. I mean, they promised the thing would park itself, but that's coming later. It is a fascinating thing. We've never seen this in the automotive field. We've never seen them launching a beta, and they market beta. So when you enable this, it says it's beta. It's not promising to be, perfect. They say that we'll have some issues on it. It's very, very interesting.
No, the fact that people, and it appears that Tesla owners are accepting beta. They're accepting being guinea pigs with the most fundamental part of driving a car, which is steering the car.
Right.
It's like, yeah, this isn't done yet, but let us know how it works out.
This is the world of technology,
yeah.
Right? I mean, you want to be on the leading edge of technology. Here's your opportunity. Do you want to go download that new iOS, the new operating system on your phone, even though it hasn't worked out, but you could be the first? Here's your opportunity, and that's what they're doing right now, and they're getting feedback, and they're going to change it. I mean, one of the things about, you talk about beta, and they kind of warn you on it, and if you take your hands off the wheel, it says, put your hands back on the wheel.
Right.
But
Eventually.
Eventually, 2.5 minutes actually, you
Yeah.
can drive with your hands off the wheel. But what's interesting about it is that, it allows you to do stuff that they're saying don't do.
Yeah.
So now it says, the system is best on a highway. The system is pretty good in stop-and-go traffic, where it'll come to a complete
No,
stop.
it likes it very much when there's a car to follow.
It works really good in stop and go. If you're in heavy traffic, it'll stop completely, it'll go. And of course, the risks are much less when you're not going 70 miles an hour on a highway.
Right.
But it's not really designed to be used on a back road that's curving.
No, and the problem is if you're on a back road at speeds over 30 miles an hour and it senses one set of lane markings, say a center double yellow line, that little steering wheel icon pops up and you're good to go. You can turn it on.
It'll allow you to use it. So while on the one hand it says, put your hands on the wheel, it says, don't use it in these situations. The way it operates is a little steering wheel that turns blue when it is engaged.
Mm-hmm.
It's smart enough. If you're somewhere where there's no lane markings at all, it'll say, autopilot is not available.
Right.
But you could go into a situation where it is not really designed to work. They say it won't work there, but it'll say, autopilot's available, hit the button.
And it works for a little bit.
It works for a little bit.
And then you get to a curve, and then it goes straight across the line.
And again, it goes back to, the toddler driving the car,
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, it's going to be pretty much okay, but then it'll, see something shiny in the woods and kind of veer off.
We've used it on these back roads in the woods, and it dives for the ditch. But you see, there's the interesting thing is that, this is always evolving. I mean, Elon Musk has talked about, we're gonna clamp down a little bit on this. The initial release was a little too lenient, but it sounds like mostly what they want to clamp down on is how long you take your hands off the wheel. There's not much discussion of, we're going to clamp down and only really let you use this where this makes sense. Because a car could know that, hey, you're on a divided lane highway. This is the perfect place to use this.
Right.
Or,
right,
hey, I'm
right.
on a 2-lane road that's only 16 or 18 feet wide. This isn't a good place to use this.
They're allowing the owners of these cars to be guinea pigs, and I think they're willing guinea pigs. They want to use this. They'll be the ones happy to jailbreak their phones or jailbreak their Tesla if they put the restrictions on it.
Probably more so than the owner of that BMW 7 Series. They are
Correct.
going to want something that is validated, something that is proven, something that has a warranty, something that... Can you imagine someone taking the Tesla into the dealer saying, my autopilot isn't working right? Because it's like, no, we've told you up front. We told you up front this isn't going to work
Right.
But to wrap up, we talked about how this is being touted as, self-driving cars. And it kind of raises this whole issue of, the fact that people are excited to have this technology here, that people actually paid $2,500 more to have something that they didn't know how it was going to work. You contrast that with safety equipment, high-tech safety equipment in cars, forward collision warning, lane departure warning, autonomous braking, and it's a much harder sell.
Right. So there's not, and this is really the most important part of it, and I'm glad you raised it, is that this is not self-driving, okay? But it's very interesting because it is marketed that way. Because they're calling it autopilot. It's not autopiloting your vehicle. It's a suite of safety features that are working together. Now, this car also has forward collision warning and automatic braking. So it will, if something jots out, it'll stop for you.
Right.
And what's interesting is, again, there's these viral videos that are like, wow, look how great this autopilot system is. That has nothing to do with autopilot. That is forward collision warning and auto braking, something that's available in much cheaper vehicles. You could get this on a Subaru Impreza.
Yep.
But that is, it's the amazing chicken and the egg confusion of safety features versus self-driving cars. And let me just underscore, this is not self-driving. There's so many more things that need to happen to get us to really self-driving. And it's just not there. You need to be scanning these things. You need to be looking around. It's neat what it could do, but oh boy, it's got ways and ways to go.
It just feels like they had to sex it up in order to sell it. Because, okay, you think about the sell of a technology package with all of these acronyms.
Right.
All these acronyms, FCW and LDW,
QRS,
and you think about it, and first of all, you get the Lake Wobegon effect of everyone is an above average driver. I don't need these safety features. And you contrast that with Tesla of, this is cool.
Right.
We gave it a catchy name of autopilot and auto steer. it just shows the challenge of marketing this technology, which can lead to increased safety.
So, but the takeaway is these are safety features that are available at much less expensive cars.
Right.
There are some very good safety features here, and these are ones that we should be wanting on our cars. It's not self-driving,
No.
but if it makes anyone pay attention and sees that video of the car automatically stopping, whatever it is, hopefully it could bring more attention.
That I can't afford a P85D, but I can afford to get eyesight in a Subaru.
Right, and unfortunately right now it's optional equipment on most of these things, but exactly. So wow, you know what? I think I'll pay the extra $1,000 and I will go get that option on this car, whether or not it's a Civic or a Subaru or whatever. And that, hopefully we'll get there and just realize that this is not just exclusive stuff when it comes to $130,000 cars.
Right. Let's hope people take that lesson away from this. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Talking Cars. As always, we appreciate you watching us. See you next time.